Hello, this is Kölsch and you are watching Guettapen.
Kölsch, de son vrai nom Rune Reilly Kölsch, est un DJ et producteur danois reconnu pour sa techno mélodique à forte charge émotionnelle. Révélé au début des années 2010 avec son album 1977, il s'est imposé comme l'un des artistes phares du label Kompakt. Sa musique, à la croisée de la techno, de la house et des sonorités orchestrales, mêle puissance des clubs et sensibilité introspective. Après avoir conquis les plus grands festivals mondiaux, Kölsch ouvre un nouveau chapitre avec son projet live Kölsch and the Machine. Il y revisite son répertoire à travers un set mêlant instruments analogiques et créations inédites, accompagné d'un nouvel album, Kinema. Hi Kölsch, thanks for joining us today. Your new album has been out since October 17th, and we have to say it's been on repeat at the office.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
We really loved this project, and I have a few questions to ask you about it. Kinema means movement. What was the initial spark, the first motion that gave birth to this project?
Okay, it's quite simple. For many years, I felt myself limited in the sense that I needed to live up to the idea of being a techno artist. I wanted to be underground. I wanted to be cool. I wanted to be something that was defined by my own limitations as a human being, I think. And I've always been dreaming about wanting to write songs and wanting to create something that was new and exciting for myself. And I never let myself do it because I figured then people would never understand. And, you know, my fans would think, oh, this is ridiculous. It's not at all what it used to be. And then I had a good conversation with a friend of mine who said, well, why don't you just do this? Like, let yourself do all these things that you want to do. Write songs. Let yourself be inspired by opera. Let yourself be inspired by all these things that you enjoy in your life. And I realized that this was the time to do this, you know. All my previous albums were so much about emotions and so much about childhood, so much about all these conceptual things that I've been having to work through as a human being, mentally and so forth. And I think it was time for me to look towards the future, to look towards something that was more positive and to create something that felt new and was beyond only techno music, was beyond only electronic music, but also beyond what I had done before. So it was very liberating for me to let myself do this.
The album includes several unreleased tracks. We know you have a huge number of ideas. How did you decide which ones belonged on Kinema?
I think I have around 40 tracks sitting still that I was considering for the album. And then I decided that these 10 tracks were the best they were. And they fit together. I think a lot of an album construction is also what fits together. An album has to be a whole coherent piece, something that you can listen to from beginning to end. And then I think it's important that the album also lets you want a little bit more. So you want to listen to it again. It gives you that feeling of, I'm still a little bit hungry to restart it one more time, right? And I felt these 10 tracks did that. I had initially planned for it to be 15 tracks, but I decided to cut it down to this because I think some of the best albums in the world are not super long. A lot of early works spring to mind because in the 80s you'd have these albums that were half an hour or 40 minutes long because of the 12 inches had a limitation of time. I think they're 20 minutes on each side. And I always liked that, the feeling that you could listen to it 2-3 times without getting tired of it. Another thing that I always wanted to do with an album was also this idea of having low volume, low impact, high volume, high impact. So the idea that if you play it at a low volume, it's not necessarily something that annoys you. It's something that sticks out or pricks you in your ear. But when you turn it up, it has an energy to it that is only apparent when you turn it up. It's listenable, but also danceable at high volumes. And that was very important for me too.
You've always had a strong sense of storytelling and a true love for cinema. If Kinema were a movie, which director would you like to see behind the camera?
I'd say Denis Villeneuve, I think, probably. That would be, I'm a huge fan, obviously. If we're going to go full old school, I guess we're not in any way form limited to living directors. Let's go Fritz Lang. I'd love that. Let's go old school, full-on film noir Fritz Lang or Alfred Hitchcock. Something that is very character-driven and very cinematic and also very contrastful. I like that.
Regarding your creation and your production, how did the creative process behind Kinema unfold? Did you start working directly with your machines to anticipate the upcoming tour? Or did you prefer a more traditional studio approach?
So the way that I worked towards this album was that it's been a long, weird process. usually what I do when I create music, I will create a very, very simple demo. And the idea with the demo is to hold an emotion. It has to be something that I can feel that is very, very strong emotionally, and then I can develop from that. So in this case, I would use a lot of my machinery to create something very, very simple, a demo, and then I would write on top of that. For instance, for a lot of the songs, I wrote the songs off the demos. Then I would have the songs re-recorded by vocalists because I don't sing very well. And then I would finish the track afterwards. And I think this process was really interesting because instead of creating the song before the music, somehow in this case I could keep the idea of an emotional context before the song existed. The most important thing with music for me is that it is emotionally direct and strong, so that whenever you put a record on, that you can feel something that I intended, or maybe not intended, at least you're feeling something. That's very important to me, and that has to go beyond the song, because a lot of times when you write a song, it becomes intellectualized. It becomes about the lyrics, about what the lyrics say. And the lyrics are not always the most important thing. The most important thing is the whole musicality of the music. And I think that's kind of what I was going for with this.
I agree. You've always stood for melodic and heartfelt music. How do you manage to keep that authenticity in today's electronic scene, which is heavily dominated by hard techno? And do you think the slower tempos can still captivate audiences?
I think we're suffering from a specific disease in the techno and electronic music scene right now, and that is monoculture. There are specific sounds that are dominating and that people somehow seek towards. And that is, as you mentioned, hard techno. That is some forms of melodic techno. That would be Afro house. These things that everybody's kind of seeking towards. It saddens me a little bit that there's not necessarily room for anything else than that, because the marketing of these things are so strong that they end up dominating everything. They kind of take away all the air from everything else. And there's so much beautiful music out there. And for me, it was important to be a counter-reaction to these things. I don't want to be that. I want to be myself. I want to create myself. I want to be able to express myself creatively, and this is the way I do it. And that is by making the music that I feel. I think slower BPMs are extremely important. The big problem for me with fast music is always that there's no room for the sounds, and it comes with a faster BPM. And we had this in the early 90s too, where techno was fast. It was plus 140, 150 BPM, and all the sounds were so short. And from a sonical point of view, that becomes a problem, because as soon as you have short sounds, you cannot reach the full frequency. Sub-bass is nearly impossible with short sounds because the waveforms are simply too short. And thereby I feel a lot of times musicality disappears. It becomes impact, it becomes effect, it becomes something that works very well for social media, but not necessarily for music.
You just mentioned it in a time where social media drives fast-paced content consumption. How do you build and maintain a coherent artistic direction?
It is very, very hard to keep true to yourself, because it is very easy to dive into tendencies. I think the hardest thing as an artist is to steer away from the things that are dictated by social media algorithms. And I see a lot of my colleagues fall into those traps, and I feel it's not necessarily the right thing to do, for me at least. I can only speak for myself. It's important as an artist to stay true to your vision, to stay true to what you want to do. And that is not necessarily the most popular thing to do, and it's not necessarily the thing that make you the most successful. But I think it's important to stay true to what you intend and what you want to deliver and what you want to tell your audience.
Let's return to your project, and especially Kölsch and the Machine tour. The name of your tour suggests a kind of dialogue between human and a machine. How did you imagine and design the stage concept?
Well, the stage concept is somewhat complicated. It is two very, very big modular synths on the stage. They're 3 meters tall, and they are the machine, if you will. And I'm the human in the middle. What we managed to do, which is really cool, is that we managed to find a balance between my original works and then enhancing the original works with the machines. So we have the opportunity that I can improvise, create something new, but we also wanted to maintain the idea that you could play my music as it is. And the whole challenge is, how do I get away with that? And I guess we'll find out tomorrow when I debut the live show.
Well, good luck for this one.
Thank you so much.
More and more electronic artists are integrating live elements, visuals, and video into their shows. Will your stage setup mainly focus on your machine?
I actually wanted it to be a more grimy experience because I personally feel that we've reached the limit of what we can achieve with visuals. And I think it detracts also something from the music. Visuals are beautiful, but sometimes it has a tendency to be nearly like going to the cinema. The visuals become the most important thing and the music becomes second to that. And I do not want that for me. I want the music to be in the center. So in this case, I kind of wanted to design the stage setup as more of like a band setup, if you will, a little more rough. I wanted it to have that feel of being unfinished because I like that. I like being invited into something that is in process. I think that is part of me as a person. I like being a bit messy on stage. I want it to be involving. And I want people to feel like they're part of something that is not going to happen without them being there.
You'll be presenting this project live, including a show at the Trianon in Paris.
Yes.
What can fans expect from this new live experience?
Well, it's me in 2-3 meter tall modular synths. And there's always going to be some lighting as well. And I think it's going to be a very, very beautiful combination, especially with Trianon, who's such a beautiful venue. Very similar to this, I guess. Has the same kind of vibe. And obviously, I love Paris. I've always been in love with Paris. I have French family. My stepmother's originally she's Parisian, and I used to come all the time. It's probably the most beautiful city in the world, to be honest with you. Just being able to go and present that there. I can't wait.
We will be there for sure.
The whole family, my whole French family is coming.
Yes, we will. If you had to sum up Kinema and this tour in a single emotion, what would it be?
Direct, I think. It's simple and direct. There's no hidden element to it. It's exactly what you see.
Kölsch, thank you so much
for
your time. Thank you.
Pleasure.